Okay, so today we are going to be talking about my most anticipated releases for 2021 when it comes to books, and I'm really excited to discuss this with you guys. So I have planned my videos a month in advance, and for a little while leading up to this video, I was a little bit, trepidatious about it because I didn't know how many books I would be able to bring to the table for this video. But you know what? Last night I did some research, looked into a wonderful website, which I will link in the description below, which shows, I believe, I didn't get that far, but I believe all of the releases that are coming out from December 2020, I believe, through to December 2021. I didn't even get that far in because I had so many books that I'm now very eagerly anticipating. Now, the reason why I am not currently doing a lot of research into new release books that are coming out, or even books that I haven't read, is because I have such a massive TBR, books that I actually have in my possession. Then I have many books on my wish list that I still need to get about purchasing. So the idea of researching any books, let alone new releases, is just not something that I ever thought I would do. But here we are doing this video, and so last night I was looking up these books. I came across a number of books that I'm now eagerly anticipating. Can you believe it? Let's add more books to my already overwhelming TBR. Let's count down, in no particular order whatsoever, my most anticipated books of 2021. The first book that I'm mostly anticipating for the new release of 2021 is The Woman Outside My Door by Rachel Ryan. A thriller mystery book, and oh my goodness, the premise just sounds amazing. So the basic premise of this book is that we are following a mother and her young child, and her young child has this imaginary friend. The mother starts to get a little bit suspicious about the imaginary friend, and then certain things come to life, making the mother ponder if the imaginary friend is more than just that. That is more than enough to get me excited. I love really good thriller mystery books that, especially when they come together for the big reveal, have a really good reveal. But even just the setup of this book sounds really amazing. So, highly anticipating this one. If you are too, it releases on January 5, 2021. Let's move forward now. The Gilded Ones by Namina Forna. Now, this book sounds really incredible. It is a young adult fantasy that revolves around a girl who is about to go to a testing ceremony. I mean, I love all these like ceremonial test things that we can get in fantasies or dystopians, so that already has me excited. But they need to test the blood of, I believe, at least the women of this village, and if their blood runs red, then they are allowed to remain in the village. If it runs another colour, then they are going to be executed. So our protagonist gets to her test and her blood runs gold. Fearing for her life and not knowing what to do, a woman ends up approaching her and telling her that she has another option. She can stay here and get executed, or come away with her, where she has built this all-female army of people who are near immortal, women who are near immortal, who have magical abilities. This strongly reminds me of a show called Salem something. I'm going to put a picture of it up there. So my sister introduced me to this show earlier on this year, and I was umming and ahhing for quite a while, but when I finally got into it, oh my gosh, I really enjoyed this. A big part of the reason why I enjoyed this show is for similar reasons as to why I want to read the book. This show revolves around these women who are a part of a women's army, and in this fantastical world, the men are sort of taking what we in our world refer to as the stereotypical female roles, and the women are joining the army. And so I really appreciated that. If that's what this book is going to do, or even if it's just going to have an all-women army, I'm really excited to read this, because the majority of my fantasies that I've read usually either revolve around an all-male army, or a male predominant army, so I'm really excited about this one. If you're excited too, this book will hit the shelves on February 9. Also hitting shelves on February 9, 2021 is this book, Game Changers by Neil Shusterman. Earlier this year, I read the Arc of a Side series, books 1, 2, and 3. I loved book 1, I liked book 2, book 3 incredibly disappointed me, but I really appreciated especially the way that that series began, and Neil Shusterman once again is coming to us with what sounds like an amazing book. I don't know if it's part of a series or if it is going to be a standalone, but the premise sounds amazing. I'm just going to jump in here and let you guys know that I don't look at the author first. I look at the premise first and then look at the author. So when I read the premise for Game Changers and was really excited, I of course then went to look at who the author was and was really shocked to see that it was Neil Shusterman. So there we go. Will this be a successful book? Time will tell. Here is the premise. Basically, we are following a footballer, I believe, some kind of sportsman who gets knocked out and then ends up in a different dimension. And throughout the book, he travels through many different dimensions. Dimensional traveling is something that I've always loved the idea of, but I haven't read it yet. So I'm incredibly excited to get to this book as well. Good luck, Neil Shusterman. Once again, this book releases on February 9, 2021. The next book that I'm eagerly anticipating in 2021 is a book called The Echo Wife by Sarah Gailey. Put a picture of it up there. So this book sounds really intriguing. It is a sci-fi book and it is set in a world where we have this wife who is extremely intelligent, so intelligent that she builds an absolute replica of herself with all of the abilities, attributes, things that the human, the original, refuses to do. She then finds out that her husband is actually cheating on her with her replica. So, time to go and deal with this. This sounds really amazing. So, earlier this year, I read a book called The Originals. I'll put a picture of that up there, by Brandon Sanderson and Mary Robinette Kowal. It's a sci-fi book that also revolves around replicas, and I really enjoyed this read, so I know that I love that trope already, but the idea of this intelligent wife building this replica, I don't know if this is the plan or not, but only to have that replica end up, being the cause of her husband cheating on her. It just sounds really interesting. Like, she created this thing. I can't wait to see where this book goes. And this book hits the shelves February 16, 2021. The next book that I'm really eagerly anticipated is The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. Now, this is a historical fiction. What's that, Mr. Francy? A historical fiction? Surely I've heard you wrong. Nay, sir. I'm actually really intrigued about this book, and I know that all year this year I've been saying I don't like historical fiction. Then I read The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón and said I don't like historical fiction unless it's written by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. But this book sounds, oh my gosh, like such a tantalizing read for me. So this book revolves around a woman. She opens up an apothecary and becomes well known, I assume, among women for selling poisons to women of abusive husbands as a way to get back at them, potentially a way to kill them. This to me sounds so good. I have read books in 2020 that did revolve around abuse, whether it was domestic or relationship abuse, and this to me is always a tough subject to read, but I love the setup for this book. A woman who has literally opened her store to say, hey, is your husband abusing you? Come by my little apothecary and we'll cook up something for you so you can poison them and get your revenge. Enter a, I believe, 12 or something year old girl who enters into the shop, and apparently they form a friendship that is going to change the world forever. This just sounds like it's right up my alley, despite the fact that it's historical fiction. And this book hits shelves on March 2nd, 2021. The next book I'm incredibly excited to read is a book called The Little French Bridal Shop by Jennifer Dupuis. This book sounds just like it's going to be so much fun to read. So basically this book revolves around a woman who goes back home to help her ailing mother, and while she's touring around, she walks past a bridal shop and there is a dress that she sees that she likes the look of, so just for fun, she tries on this dress. Don't know if she ends up liking it or hating it. That's not the point. Because she tried on this dress, unbeknownst to her, everyone in the town is now planning her wedding. A wedding which doesn't even exist in the first place. For all we know, she doesn't even have a boyfriend, let alone a fiancé. But the whole town is coming together to plan this non-existent wedding, and it just sounds really like it's going to be a lot of fun. And if this book interests you too, this book hits shelves on March 9, 2021. The next book that really intrigues me is a book called The Memory Collectors by Kim Neville. What really intrigues me about this book, as the premise was a little longer than I needed. What really intrigued me was just within the first line. We are following a protagonist who, just by touching objects, can feel the emotions from these objects, and I'm assuming that these emotions are left from the humans who had them in their possession to begin with. Apparently, the rest of the book revolves around her trying to set all these objects up in some kind of a museum, and she has a friend come in to help her. But what intrigues me is the fact that she can touch these objects and feel these emotions. I love this idea. I think it's a wonderful idea, and I absolutely credit Kim Neville for this one. If you are interested in this book hits shelves on March 16, 2021. The next book that really intrigues me is a book called Every Vow You Break by Peter Swanson. So this is a mystery thriller book that revolves around a wife that runs into a man that she had an affair with on her wedding night. That's all the premise that we're given, but with mysteries and thrillers, you really don't want to know too much, but this intrigues me enough. Like, is there going to be some comeuppance? If there's a murder in this book, who gets killed? Like, this just has the potential to have so much drama, and let's be real, you can read books that are really boring, that really don't have any drama at all, but this sounds like it's gonna have so much drama in it that I am totally on board. If there are deaths involved, I'm even more on board. And this book will be hitting shelves March 23, 2021. The next book that I'm kind of eagerly anticipating is a book called Kate in Waiting. The reason why I'm kind of eagerly anticipating it is because, once again, I read the premise and became really excited about it before I saw the author's name that's attached to it, and the author who's written this book is none other than the potentially polarizing author, from what I've seen, Becky Albertalli. So Becky Albertalli, from what I've seen with reviews and discussions that people have had, is a very, very, very polarizing author. There are readers out there who absolutely love her. There are readers out there who absolutely do not love her. So she's quite a controversial author. However, the premise of this book does sound really, really good, and oh my goodness. So basically we have these two best friends, a straight female and a gay male. These two friends one day come across this really attractive guy, and they both end up having a crush on him. And the tagline is basically, is this going to tear their friendship apart? How are they going to deal with this? And I just think this is going to be a wonderful topic to explore in the world of literature. Again, I did not notice that Becky Albertalli is the author until I had seen the premise and went, oh my god, I love the sound of this. So I'll see how I go with this one, but I just love this idea, and yeah, really intrigued for it. And this book will be hitting shelves April 20, 2021. The final three books that I'm going to talk to you guys about are books that I was already aware of the fact that I was eagerly anticipating them. So we're going to get into those. And the first book that I've been eagerly anticipating for quite some time now is a book called As Far As You'll Take Me by Phil Stamper. This is an LGBTIQ+ book, and it is the second book from the author of this book, The Gravity of Us. I read this book quite a number of months ago, and I loved this book so much and fell in love with this author so much, you guys. Here's how much. I originally borrowed The Gravity of Us from my local library, and I clung onto it until I became dangerously close to having to pay overdue fees while waiting for my own copy to appear. I have been displaying this book ever since I read it because of how much I love this book, and even though I've only read one book of his, and this is only because he's only published one book, I have grown to 100% trust Phil Stamper. So I do not want to read the premise of this book. I want to go in blind because I trust Phil Stamper enough to be able to do that. But if you don't want to go into this book blind, I completely understand that. I will leave the description of this book down in the description below, so that will be the link to the Goodreads description. So you can click on that and check that out yourself. But As Far As You'll Take Me is a book that I've been looking forward to ever since I found out that Phil Stamper is releasing another book. I'm incredibly excited about this one. Now, originally this book was due to come out in February, but I spoke to my local bookstore because I wanted to pre-order a copy of this book, and they have told me rather recently that the book has been postponed, I believe, until May, which is kind of, good news, bad news for me. The good news for me is that May is my birthday month, so what a way to celebrate my birthday than with the new release of Phil Stamper's book. The bad news obviously being that I was hoping it was going to be released in February. So we'll see how we go, but I'm really looking forward to this one. Go Phil Stamper. The final book that I'm very eagerly anticipating, and just because it's last does certainly not mean that it is least, is this book, Nowhere, by Brandon Sanderson. This is the third book in the Skyward series. I read Skyward quite a number of months ago, and I really enjoyed that book. I then read book number 2, and book number 2 allowed Brandon Sanderson to expand upon that world, and I'm really eagerly anticipating book number 3 to see how he ties everything together with the third book, so we'll see how we go with that one. But I mean, it's Brandon Sanderson, so I am incredibly excited, of course. And this book is at the moment planned to be released on November 11, 2021. I didn't know it was going to be that late, but that's okay. I can wait for Mr. Brando Sando. So, what do you think of these new releases? Are you eagerly anticipating any of them? Were you before this video? Were you after this video? Are there any other books that are coming out between, let's say, January and April that you're eagerly anticipating? Let me know in the comments below. Another question, would you like me to come back periodically to do more anticipated new releases in 2021 where I go from, say, April to June, and then another one where I go from July to September, and so on and so forth? If so, let me know in the comments below. But in the meantime, that is where I am going to leave it, letting you guys go peace, blessings, and so much love. I post videos every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday for now, and I'll see you again soon. Mwah! Thank you so much for watching, and happy reading!